What are two things that you think are the most important to people in Kentucky? I'd say like history and what else?
Nostalgia, but that's a blend of history and something.
I guess that's true. Nostalgia is a part of history. People love to be part of something that's still developing. I think Kentucky pride was always here. Let me make that clear. I think now it's a little more cool to be vocal about it. When a place explodes and becomes popular, we love the idea of being able to say, I was already here. Where the hell have you been? But it really starts to show itself the most when you look at brands from Kentucky versus brands from anywhere else. So when we first started the Road Trip project, what we wanted to figure out or examine was just what is important to people about Kentucky brands specifically, and what is important to the people pushing those brands forward.
Family businesses to me are based on tradition. They are so much on the heritage that is within that brand. So whereas a lot of businesses are so focused on growing their brand and expanding their brand, there are some brands where it's not essentially necessary because they're more focused on keeping that tradition and keeping it the same throughout the generations and making sure that their brand is the same. So I think that's why Starnes is so great at what they do, because they are not only a Kentucky brand, but they're a Kentucky brand that is completely defined by their heritage and their history, and that's what makes them them.
Many people have their own ideas about how a barbecue sandwich should be. My grandfather began in 1955. It was a way that he saw to make a living for his family. So it was something he was pretty good at, so he offered it to the general public. We supply the pork, beef, ham, turkey, and smoked bologna. Typically speaking, we'll start with our pork shoulders on the pit in the morning, and we're going to spend at least 12 hours as far as the cooking process to get it where we need it to be. My grandfather, Floyd Starnes, he came up with our sauce. The recipe and all, he worked with it till he got to where he was pleased with it before he offered it to anyone else. It would be hard to serve barbecue without some type of sauce, so I'm sure my grandfather, he said, if it's not worth putting your name on it, he said, don't fool with it. So I felt like he came out with his own from the get-go. It's offered here locally, and we're branching out a little further, and I can't say how far out it's gone, but I do have a friend that saw it in Florida. Word of mouth has always been what we've relied on. People are going to talk about you whether it be good or bad, and we've been blessed in that area. Basically, we're counting on the public to do our advertising for us. Many of our customers, when they come in, they heard about us from a friend of theirs or a family member, and we've been blessed over the years, people traveling many miles just to see what they're talking about, so we're thankful. The stories that mean so much to me from our customers are the ones where they tie us with their family get-togethers. I mean, if they feel good enough to have our product in their home to share with their family, and they look at that's part of their homecoming, that honors us. I mean, over the years, we've heard people telling about they used to come in with their grandfather or their father or a family member, and that begins a new relationship with us. I mean, next thing you know, they're bringing their children. We don't change anything. Traditionally, we've been very set in our ways, so to speak. Going to work, it's just what we do. I mean, we grew up here, and you do what you do best. And it's always been my goal, not to progress the business, but to maintain what my grandfather began. I always wanted to just make a living. I didn't want to be rich, just wanted to be able to make a living for my family and have something at the end of that to pass along to the next generation. And we've been blessed in all our efforts, so we're thankful.
So any locally based brand or business is going to be limited by their location. So a great example of a business that is taking community marketing and really exploding with it is Heine Brothers Coffee. And they do this by interacting and adapting to the needs and the values and beliefs of the community that they're based in. So they actually began by getting involved with fair trade coffee, and since then they've actually gotten more and more involved with community-based projects and charities and initiatives like that. And the more Heine Brothers Coffee actually expands, the more integrated they get with the community, and the more they become a leader for a local culture.
You see everybody in coffee shops. You see old people, young people, rich people, poor people, business people, teachers, artists, atheists, Jews, Christians, Democrats, Republicans. Everybody's in the coffee shop. And it's one of my favorite things about being in the business. We've learned a lot in running coffee shops for 22 years. And one of the things I've learned is that we don't need to try to be all things to all people. And we've really honed our story over the years. We're a locally owned and operated company. We're focused on running our business profitably, delivering a remarkable customer experience, making sure our stores are great places to work, and making a real positive impact on our community and around the planet where we can. And what we've learned is that that way of operating, that way of thinking, it really resonates with people. Not everybody that comes in our shops and not every coffee shop customer in Louisville, but I know for a fact that that way of thinking is important enough to a lot of our customers that they will drive by a Starbucks with good parking to go to one of our shops because they want to support us. So we decided early on that we wanted to try to operate in ways that would result in us treating people and the planet with respect and dignity. So one of the ways this has shown up powerfully is the way that we buy our coffee.
We source everything 100% fair trade certified. That's important for the company. It's a part of who we've been. But then for me personally, it means a lot because I've had the opportunity to visit with farmers, but I think more importantly to visit farmers on their farms, basically in their homes, and seeing what it means to live day to day as a coffee farmer. The amount that we pay per pound, even though on paper it looks like just a few cents more here or there, makes a significant difference so that we ensure to the best of our ability that farmers are making a living wage. Then for us, the relationship extends well beyond just the one day a year that we sign a contract for a container of coffee, whether that's contributing to healthcare initiatives, literacy programs, water projects. There are many, many needs that coffee farmers have that the sale of coffee wouldn't solve.
So our membership in cooperative coffees and our participation in this fair trade system is one of my favorite things about our business, and I can say with confidence that the ways that we buy our coffee, have chosen to buy our coffee, is making a meaningful difference in people's lives around the world. Another cause we got behind was this work that Kentuckians for the Commonwealth was doing to try to stop mountaintop removal mining. Not to stop coal mining, but to stop mountaintop removal mining. And we decided we wanted to do our part to support their work. So it began with a poetry reading at one of our stores back in around 2008. And from that, we decided to launch a coffee blend called Mountain Dream. We would give 50 cents of every bag of Mountain Dream that we sold to Kentuckians for the Commonwealth to support their work to try to stop mountaintop removal mining. And then we decided to go even further with that, and we launched a coffee blend that we called Kentucky Dream. We decided to take Kentucky Dream and move it into some different environmental areas in Kentucky. So we are now supporting the Forecastle Foundation. The Forecastle Festival is a pretty well-known music festival that happens in Louisville every July in Waterfront Park. They launched a foundation to do environmental work around the globe. So we have the same program in place. We have found, I have learned, and many of the people that work for us have learned that there's a lot more. We all want to make a good living. We all like to travel. We all like to go to restaurants and do good things. But there's way more to life than just making money. And being part of a business that's committed to things like impact are worth a lot to a lot of us.
We work with a lot of smaller and larger brands here at Innovations Branding House, but two key things for all of them to be a strong brand is adaptation and innovation. It's one of the reasons why we have innovation, I think, in our name. It's because it's something we think about all the time. It's changes, it's being innovative in our thinking. And businesses have to do this to be able to continue moving forward. And I think that's what I love about Cheney's, is that they really did that. They looked at their business model and what was happening on the farm and the market that's changing and economic times that are changing, and they decided that they had to make a change. Of course, Cheney's could have changed their name. They didn't have to do Cheney's Dairy Barn. It's always a risk to put your name on something. I mean, the business could have failed, but instead they flourished. And I think it's important that they chose to keep their name and to put their name on it and say, this is our place, because it just continues that passion behind the local farm. And they had the dairy farm. It was there since the 40s. And now they get to continue on the legacy of that farm, but with something new and something exciting and something that the entire family can be a part of.
Buy local is so significant now. I think people want to know that the product that they're eating is local as much as possible. My great-great-grandfather started farming here in 1888. My dad started milking cows here in 1940. We've been milking cows now for 77 years. Well, Dad bought Topsy back in the early 70s. He paid $10,000 for it, and we thought he lost his mind. She was the first Jersey cow to be classified 97 points. If Bo Derek was a 10, well then Topsy was a 9.7. However, Topsy milked 100 pounds of milk a day. Also, Topsy went in the encyclopedia where they had a picture of the different dairy cows. For the Jersey, Topsy's picture was in there.
In about 2001, actually, Carl's family held an internet sale which allowed them to disperse about half the cattle and gave us enough financial stability that we felt like we could do something a little bit different.
In 2003, we opened the ice cream store, Cheney's Dairy Barn, because of low milk prices. There's probably been 3 times in the last 13, 14 years that if it was not from the supplemental income from the ice cream store for the farm, we would have probably had to have sold the cows.
I was just a seamstress and a housewife, and Carl a farmer. And to begin a business like this, we were just in a spin, not knowing what to take care of first.
You know, to think where we will make 20,000 gallons of ice cream this year, when we started, we absolutely had no experience except for when, you know, in the backyard, you'd make some ice cream. Our ice cream is a Kentucky Proud product. Matter of fact, in 2003, it was the only ice cream that was a Kentucky Proud product when we started.
Then we also realized that their marketing and things that they were doing to help get word out about the people who were Kentucky Proud was quite valuable to us. So we buy into the program every year.
We used to have a June is Dairy Month celebration, and so then my wife and I thought, you know, what can we do to really show people how much we appreciate them buying dairy product? So we came up with the idea of Miss Glimmer Appreciation Day. So everybody gets to come in and everybody gets one free scoop of ice cream.
So we said, why don't we just take all that money we're spending and let's just give away the ice cream. And I was just like, are you crazy? Just give away all, and he's like, I think it'll work.
You just got to realize Miss Glimmer is very popular. A few of the people will know me, but everybody knows Miss Glimmer.
And the very first year, it convinced me, because the families who came through were so truly appreciative of the ice cream that it just gave me a whole new appreciation for them and for why we did that day.
This year we put in a new playground, and we have just been so much busier. We've got the new robot now down at the farm that we're getting so many people that are able to kind of take a self-guided tour and go down and see the robot actually milk cows. Milk comes from the grocery store, but before the grocery store, it comes from that cow.
Paying attention to the people coming through the door and realize the impact that they can make on your life and that you can make on them, you get really bonded and connected. So we're very blessed to be surrounded by just a whole community of people.
So Woodford Reserve has created their own kind of history, but in sort of an unconventional way, taking a historical place that has historical significance to Kentucky, but then making it their own. Like, they've they've built their brand around this history that it makes it feel so much more, it feels like they've been around for 100 years. And while the property's been around for well over that, Woodford is a fairly young brand at just over 20 years old. They've also established themselves with one of the greatest histories, one of the greatest traditions in Kentucky, which is the Kentucky Derby. So they did a really great job of seamlessly kind of integrating this old and new and maximizing it to their advantage, really.
The history here is not Brown-Forman's history, it's just the history of this place.
And a lot of bourbon history occurred within those 4 stone walls.
Crazy to think about, you can read about it in history books, and I'm here walking on that same property.
Bourbon, as we know it today, has its foundations here in Woodford County.
In 1812, the Pepper family settled here and began not only farming but distilling on the site. Just a family that's what they did. It was part of their survival. The tradition continued. Christopher Crowe started introducing the amazing technology, the hydrometer and the thermometer to measure proof.
Well, the 3rd generation of the Pepper family sold the operation in 1878 to a company called LeBreau and Graham. And again, they operated off and on until Prohibition. And Prohibition did close the distillery for approximately 15 to 16 years. It was reopened, but very quickly sold to our parent company, Brown-Forman, in 1940. It was abandoned for nearly a generation. We came back with a new goal in mind, and the goal was to create a bourbon whiskey that would become a global icon, a global favorite. We would open up a new distillery at a time when bourbon distilleries were being closed, and that distillery would open for tours when there was no Kentucky Bourbon Trail, there was no bourbon tourism as we know it today. Well, we are a whiskey distillery fundamentally, and every whiskey distillery, we all share the same 5 sources of flavor, the 5 processes.
We didn't go off of anybody's old family recipe or this or that. It was what recipes will be the best and hold up and give us the most flavor.
Every whiskey distillery does those 5 processes. We have taken great pains to make each of those 5 sources of flavor have a discernible impact on our product.
So horses in Kentucky and bourbon in Kentucky, they just seem to go perfectly together. And one thing that ties the two together is the limestone water. It's got a lot of magnesium and calcium in it, so that makes for great racehorses. And then our bourbon, of course, I mean, those minerals in the water create great flavors in your bourbon.
The Kentucky Derby is certainly very important to Louisville and Kentucky. We became the official bourbon of the Kentucky Derby because they asked us, they being Churchill Downs. The thoroughbred horse racing industry was trying to reinvent itself, and we came along at about the same time, and we were reinventing bourbon. We were cool, contemporary, stylish, fun, and of course we tasted great. And Churchill Downs and the industry thought we were the perfect bourbon to partner with.
Bourbon is what kicked off tourism in Kentucky.
Bourbon is what Kentucky's better known for now. Most of the world doesn't realize that we have a love of basketball and of horse racing, but Kentucky bourbon is sold everywhere. They're coming because of the brands themselves. So we don't have to do that much more here except to do a good job hosting people. They have done some other research and they start to learn about the wonderful history of Kentucky, the music, bluegrass music, again, the horse farms. They just start to learn there's a whole lot more to this area than the great bourbon whiskey that may have inspired them to come in the first place. So again, we're working together to promote this greater good, which is all the things that are good about Kentucky.
People are really proud of the heritage that comes with being from Kentucky now. And when a brand kicks off in Kentucky, there's a certain attitude that comes with it. And L8 has really kept that alive. It's remarkable how well they're able to still interact with their consumers. There's a community of rock climbers, mostly in Red River Gorge in eastern Kentucky, that have really made L8 their unofficial mascot. They put Red River Gorge on the latest design for their 6-pack cases. Their bottle return program is something that's been going on for a long time, but it's something that they always make an effort to continue. They kept this program going as a way to interact with consumers who share those values, who share values on recycling and renewability.
So while the sort of traditional sodas are kind of on the decline, craft sodas that have some heritage and some story, we're in glass, everything that we sort of already were is now kind of hot. It's of interest to folks.
Founder Geo Wainscott had a beverage company. He started in 1902. Over the years, he had several different products, but he wanted to make something that was truly his own, something that wasn't a cola, something that he really just had his hand in inventing himself. And so he traveled around Europe. He came up with a bunch of different recipes that he'd bought, he tinkered with, and then he came up with a recipe for Ale 8 in 1926, and then had a name the product contest to decide a name on it. The winning entry was a late one, kind of like the latest thing. And he shortened that down, kind of made a pun on it, turned it into Ale 8-1. We've got the original handwritten notes. We've taken those notes and we've just scaled it up to a larger batch size, which is what we produce today.
I am an 8th generation Kentuckian, so to come to Ale 8, to lead it, into its next phase of growth was honestly a real honor and privilege for me. I was so excited. I mean, there's just not a cooler brand. I have a bit of a marketing background, and if you're at all interested in marketing, there's not a cooler brand on the planet than Ale 8-1. And if you're from Kentucky, I mean, it's just, the bee's knees. The concept here is return for deposit. It's, on the bottle, that it's a return for deposit bottle. And we thought, that's what Fielding has done and what we try to do in leadership, and frankly, what our employees do every day is return a deposit made in good faith. It holds you to your word. It makes you think about your integrity, and it makes you think about keeping our people safe, which comes from caring for our employees.
The local community is really kind of a core of who we are. Almost all of our sales are in Kentucky, or at least the area, and people, and particularly Winchester, really like their Ale 8. So that's kind of made us what we are. If you go down the road, you'll see it at restaurants and gas stations, and you'll see it all over the place here. And that's, we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the community being a fan of the product. We're not a huge company, but we are a somewhat sizable company. And so, we're certainly very happy to be one of the employers of Winchester, and made right here with everything that we do. We make the product, we bottle it ourselves, we manage our own fleet in our trucks and vending machines in the office.
It was, we are these jobs. We're located, in Winchester, Kentucky, at the foothills of Eastern Kentucky, and these jobs matter so much to this community. So my job is very, very clear. It's to make this company more resilient so that we'll be here in another 100 years. Literally, that's it.
When the place where you come from becomes more popular, you finally get to share everything that you love about it with everyone that you know. Some brands are based on a legend that was told somewhere. Some brands are based on a tradition that a family keeps going. Some brands are just started like any other business. But there's always something unique about the mindset of the people who are creating those brands and trying to push them forward, whatever forward might mean to them.